Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Crash, and today we're here to rate every single ongoing Shonen Jump series, with the exception of one, but we'll get there eventually. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about what Jump is for the few of you that may not know. The Weekly Shonen Jump is, well, a weekly shonen magazine. Don't confuse it with Weekly Shonen Magazine, that's a rival one. You get to pick the obvious names when you come first. It's why Alien is called Alien. You got it first. The others had to think of a name, something like Weekly Shonen Jump or Weekly Shonen Sunday, despite not being published on Sunday. But yeah, it's a weekly magazine that publishes chapters of manga, and what Jump has over Magazine and Sunday is that it had a lot of major hit titles since the 80s. And sure, the others had and have a lot of successful manga, but they ain't Jump. We're talking about titles like Dragon Ball, Okuro no Ken, Saint Seiya, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, Nisekoi, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Slam Dunk, Kimetsu no Yaiba. I could be here all night, but I'm not gonna. Death Note, My Hero Academia, Slam Dunk, there's just so many. I said Slam Dunk twice, I think. Whatever. Today we're going to take a look at the current ongoing manga in the magazine, from oldest to youngest, and I'm going to rate them on a scale from 1 to 10. To note, however, that some of the manga in the magazine are just starting out, so while my score will reflect my opinion based on what's out so far, it's very easy for those manga to change my opinion with one good or bad moment. At the time of recording, the latest Weekly Shonen Jump issue is issue number 2 of 2021, and hopefully when the video does come out, it won't be too outdated with the ever-changing flow of Shonen Jump. This video will be divided into parts because talking about 21 manga is going to take a while. So today we're going to tackle the older manga in the magazine, the ones that have anime adaptations or at least confirmed adaptations, the ones who have already built a name. And in the next part we'll tackle the up-and-coming rookies and the future of the magazine. The oldest manga in the magazine doesn't really need an introduction. One Piece by Eiichiro Oda has been in the magazine since July of 1997. It counts 997 chapters and 97 volumes as of today. And it's the best-selling manga, not only in Jump, but in general. It tells the story of Luffy, a rubber boy who wishes to become the king of pirates. And to achieve that title, he must find a worthy crew and search the seas for the fated One Piece, the biggest treasure in the world, left by the previous pirate king, Gold Roger, in an unknown location. The thing about One Piece is that the synopsis doesn't really tell you the full picture, which is normal when you take into account its size, but it's definitely one manga that starts small, and over the course of its first 2 sagas that admittedly are more than 200 chapters, starts showing a bigger, more complex world and story. The two main appeals of One Piece is, as everyone and their mother have said, the fantastic world building of the series and the sense of wonder and adventures that comes from following Luffy and his friends throughout said world. I could probably spend a long time talking about One Piece, but I feel like most of the things that I would say would have been said already. I will link a video from YouTuber Super White Patch Wolf on the subject, as I think it does a great job at explaining why you should check the manga out if you haven't. And a lot of the reasons why he likes One Piece are the same as mine. To me, it's one of the best battle shonens, one of the best series overall that I've ever read. Of course, I'm a bit biased, as I've been watching and reading it since I was in high school. I've been following it for almost half of my life by this point. I've been following it for more than half of its run. It's a very special manga, and I can't give it anything other than a 10 out of 10. If you want to read it and you're scared of the sheer size, it's understandable. But to that I say, just don't binge it. Read a saga or an arc at a time. Then stop to appreciate it and digest it. Read other stuff. Take a break. One Piece isn't meant to be binged, and you don't have to do it. Take it slow. Now, before I jump to the second oldest, I need to mention Hunter x Hunter. It's technically the second longest manga in Jump. It started almost a year after One Piece in March of 1998, but we're not touching on that one for 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is that I haven't read it. And the reason why I haven't read it is reason number 2. A lot of hiatuses. It hasn't been in the magazine for a couple of years. And while I'm sure it still sells well and has a very dedicated fan base, it's hard to argue that the manga is affecting the current roster in any shape or form. So we'll just move on to My Hero Academia. This is another one that doesn't really need an introduction. Being written by Kohei Horikoshi since July of 2014, it's one of the biggest titles of the last decade, and it's the poster child for the new generation of battle shonens. My Hero Academia is the story of Izuku Midoriya, a boy without powers in a world where everyone has them, until the day he finds out that All Might, the biggest superhero of the world, has the ability to give his powers to one person, and All Might ends up choosing him. And this is not going to be the only time we see this kind of plot in the current roster. And, well, I personally enjoy it a lot. I think it's definitely one manga that improves as it goes. While the start may just look like another battle shonen, I think it's from the Hero Killer arc and onwards that it shows its true colors. I really like the themes explored in this manga. It starts exploring what it means to be a hero. Some heroes are doing good things for fame or money. They are wrong, right? And some villains seem to have more noble reasons for their acts, which leads us to characters like Endeavor or Gentle. And these, more so than the main characters, are what makes the manga for me. The art style is also one of the best in the magazine right now. It's so clean and stylized. I just love it. Overall, I'm giving My Hero Academia a 9 out of 10, especially since I've been loving the last 3 or 4 arcs. The first couple manga in the magazine are all incredibly famous, and so is Black Clover, which has been in Jump since early 2015. It too tells the story of a boy without powers in a world full of magical users, this time in a fantasy setting. The boy, Asta, gets around this when he wins the Grimoire, with anti-magic powers, which technically isn't magic, but makes him able to nullify magic, which is incredibly powerful on its own. To discuss Black Clover, I think we first must address the main complaint. It's just a generic battle shonen, which is fair. A lot of the elements from Black Clover are taken from other manga. Asta wants to be the Wizard King, which is basically the Hokage from Naruto. There's guilds similar to Fairy Tail, and the no powers plot reminds me of My Hero Academia, as previously mentioned. With that said, I think the strong point of Black Clover is knowing the core and the beats of its genre and doing them right to deliver fun and enjoyable manga. It's a good intro for newcomers to anime and manga, and fans of battle shonen should enjoy this as well. If you, however, dislike the genre or just like some specific manga from them, I'd say it's less likely you come out of it enjoying it. However, I am a fan, and so I appreciate and enjoy what Black Clover is doing. The pacing also helps. It's quite fast, with action happening more often than not. In some other stories, that might be a problem. It might not let you breathe. But in Black Clover, I think it's well executed. We spend more time in the good shit, which is having these cool characters having cool fights. Which isn't to say that Black Clover doesn't have that, doesn't have deeper themes, doesn't have world building. It most definitely has. Personally, I don't think they are as complex or as innovative as others in the magazine. But again, that's not the strongest point of this manga. The characters and action is. I do think that the peak of the manga has come and gone though. The Alpha arc was definitely the highlight, and since then things have felt a bit lackluster. However, the quality in these last few chapters have been increasing again, so I do think there's a chance that we may reach that high again. In terms of rating, having in mind the latest arc, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. However, if it continues with recent quality from here on out, it most likely will regain its previous score of an 8. Jumping over 2016 and falling right in February of 2017, we have We Never Learn, also known by this name that will appear on the screen. Often shortened to Bokuben, this is Shonen Jump's current rom-com, and that will make me a bit biased, as a lot of my first manga were rom-coms, and I quite like the genre. We Never Learn is especially influenced by one I really like, Jump's own Nisekoi, and, as a matter of fact, before this manga, Tsutsui actually did a Nisekoi spin-off called Magical Patisserie Kosaki-chan, Mao Shoujo about Ondera that I definitely recommend checking out if you're a fan of the character. However, contrary to Nisekoi, this spin-off has a lot of ecchi. Like, you get to see them all naked. And We Never Learn, while not as graphical, does bring a lot of it to the table too. It follows a plot similar to Quintuplets, being about a poor guy who is tasked to tutor some beautiful girls who fall in love with him. However, it was actually released first. And this manga is a bit more of a traditional harem rom-com. It is a lot about having them being dropped into ecchi situations or misunderstandings and see shenanigans happening. It can be a bit tiresome after a while, but if you survive long enough, you'll be rewarded, as I think the second half of this manga is where it really shines the most. They start developing more of the goals of the female characters, the reasons why they have them, and this helps making them feel a lot more real and deep than most other RM girls. They're not just generic personalities like yandere or tsundere, they are people who have career choices that tie with their personalities and backstory. I so really like the main character, which isn't very frequent in this genre, but he's just so cool. He's my waifu. The manga is ending soon, I'd say 2 or 3 more chapters, so this score is pretty much final. I've been pondering between an 8 or a 9, and I think I'll just have it at an 8.5. Moving a month ahead, we have a manga by a true all-star team, written by Riichiro Nagaki of iShield 21 fame and drawn by Boichi, Sunken Rock's mangaka. I'm talking of course about Dr. Stone, and while this is the first Boichi manga I read, I was already familiar with his art style and I really liked it. So I'm happy to see it on a Jump manga, albeit seemingly a more toned down art style, which is okay. He's a mangaka that knows where and how to tone it down. If we were to look at manga like Bone Collection or Yaiba, which to be fair are not in any way close to Boichi in terms of art style, and we look at the smaller panels, we see that some of them are almost unreadable. But Dr. Stone doesn't have this. Boichi knows where to put and remove details, he knows how to draw chibi characters and funny and derpy reaction faces. But when it comes to double spreads, big panels, it's just so gorgeous to look at. I always take a couple of seconds just to absorb the characters' expressions. And I'm very happy to see Nagaki coming back, since iShield is not only one of my favorite Jump manga, it's my favorite sports manga. He really knows how to write comedy in characters that are even cooler because of their character designs that, even if sometimes may look similar to others, tend to have something that defines them and helps them become more memorable. Of course, the standout feature of Dr. Stone is roadmaps who tell you how things are made. That really appealed to the 10-year-old me who wondered how humanity made things like computers, cars, lamps. And I like how they rarely end up with something as technological as we have nowadays, and it's more of a rough, around the edges iteration that works just well enough. It helps the realism of the manga. The realism contrasts a little bit with the plot and characters, which are way over the top. Senku is more intelligent than any person could ever be, and pretty much every other character is an extreme of some profession. But I think both realities mesh well. It helps this manga to not be just an educational one, because to me that's not what Dr. Stone is first and foremost. Dr. Stone is an epic shonen about reviving civilization with the help of an all-star team. With that said, for a manga about reviving civilization little by little, this manga can and has too many characters, and they just keep on growing, and I'm sure they will continue to do so. The problem is that it rarely feels like a character introduced drops out of relevance, and so you currently have too many characters influencing the story. A lot of these characters are fantastic and make the manga to me, but a lot of them just don't need to still be in the story. It just makes the current arc a bit too confusing for my tastes. That's the single bad point I have to say about Dr. Stone, however. It's one of my favorites in the magazine, and it gets the 9 out of 10 for me. The next one is one that I'm a bit afraid of tackling, because it's one of the few manga in the magazine that I don't really like. And I really like most of them, so if you're here for the negative scores, I'm sorry. But Jujutsu Kaisen isn't one of that I'm a massive fan of. And it's not that I hate it or that I think it fails at every regard. I do think it's among the best when it comes to paneling and flow of the fights. I really enjoy the art style. I also do realize that this is the next big deal, or even the current big deal of the magazine. It's selling well, and it looks like it's here to stay for at least a couple of years, and the magazine needs Jujutsu Kaisen right now. But I don't. I think the technical aspect of the manga is pretty good, but a lot of the arcs aren't that fun, especially the early ones in Jujutsu High. And there's very few characters that I really liked. Like, I like Gojo, but I don't think I care about anyone else that much. And that just made me disconnect with the story. By the time the current arc started, I just didn't care. And sure, there's a lot of cool moments that I liked and interesting battles that I enjoyed in this current arc. But a lot of times, and I'm sure this is just me, I kinda tuned out and wasn't even aware of who were the good guys and who were the bad guys. There was a lack of emotional attachment to these battles, and that breaks the manga for me. I'm not giving this manga a negative score because I don't think it deserves it. There's definitely quality to it, but it's my least favorite out of the ones we talked about so far. So it's getting a 6 out of 10. And if you're a JJK fan, that score doesn't upset you, it's likely that the scores I'm about to give to some of the manga in part 2 will. But before that, I need to turn into a fanboy for a second, as we are about to talk about Chainsaw Man, the last manga we will be talking about today. But in December of 2018, Fujimoto released Chainsaw Man, and it's just a wild ride. From chapter 1, it got my attention by having one of the most unique main characters in a battle shonen. Denji doesn't really behave like a normal main character. He still fights for good, but isn't afraid of doing some morally grey stuff, like going for the nuts. He also has a lesser goal to his life. He just wants a bed, decent breakfast, and good sex. It's a far cry from being a pirate king or a wizard king or a shaman king, and I'm not saying those are a bad thing. I think it's important to set a goal for your characters. But I like Denji's backstory a lot, and it makes his small goals more believable and darker. And this manga is just so intense, even when it's not being intense. Characters die, plans fail, and story structure is optional. From Fire Punch and Chainsaw Man, I realized that Fujimoto is someone who writes for himself and not for the audience. The result is something that is hard to predict. He is known for flipping the plot on its head multiple times to destroy what it sets up, just to set up something even more over the top. This lack of predictability helps this manga have a sense of horror that permeates outside of the panels of the manga. It has that uncanny valley sense to it. It's similar enough in a lot of regards, but at the same time it's different in a way that is uneasy, and it plays a bit with that fear of the unknown. The art style helps convey this even more, since it's just a bit rough around the edges. And I'm not sure if this is even something that the author is actively going for, but it's certainly an effect of his style. Chainsaw Man is a wild ride, and it will and has alienated some part of its audience, especially in the last 15 or so chapters. But to me, it's the most fun manga to follow weekly. The thing about Chainsaw Man is that it's ending in one chapter, and honestly, that chapter probably will come out before this video does. There's gonna be a part 2, but I think my score for part 1 is set in stone, and that's a solid 10 out of 10. My second 10 for a Jump manga ever. Everything else right now is a rookie in my eyes. It's a weird time in Jump right now, so I think the next part is going to be the most important one, as we will be talking about the manga that will be in the magazine in the future, so stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I don't want to do this on every single video of mine, because I know people are minded it for every one that they watch on this website. But this is my first serious video, and any support or feedback will be appreciated. Every like, share, subscription, comment, right now it means a lot. If you watched it till here, thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.